I got a lovely lady seated right next to me, and she's attached to one of the leading multinational organizations in Sri Lanka, and she's Mrs. Priyadarshini Karunanayaka. She's the Vice President, Food, Nestle Lanka PLC. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Ms. Sangha.
Right. To start our conversation, can we first talk about how you started your career? That was 25 years ago. When you started your career, what was your original ambition?
When I started my career, straight after the university, my ambition was to actually learn more, be a part of a new environment and earn, and of course give whatever the skills and the learnings that I got back to the organization and be recognized. So that is the simple sort of truth. And in this journey, there were many ups and downs, many learnings, and each and every occasion was a true learning for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So looking at your profile, what you see is that you have been attached to the same organization for the past 25 years. But
Yes.
today, when you look at the labor market, you see people moving jobs very, very frequently. So what made you stick on to the same organization without making any career moves outside?
So after my graduation, when I was seeking employment, when I was looking around for jobs, I in fact went to so many organizations for interviews. And right then, like, my criteria was not only the remuneration, it had to sort of had a fitting, in the sense like this organization, I felt the culture of that particular organization blends well with my values. Because each organization stands for a set of values and a culture.
Okay.
So I think that made me to stay in this organization for so long. And the other thing is, though I've been there for a long time, I've been actually contributing in different ways, in the sense like I've been doing many roles, and each role was different to the other.
Okay.
And these actually gave me a varied experience, and it motivated me to stay on. So I think that's something that I think in today's youngsters, where they are moving around, they actually seek for variety in different aspects. So I think that is something actually I got within the organization.
Right. So since you are attached to a leading multinational organization in Sri Lanka, can you talk about how the local economy could be positively affected by multinationals operating in Sri Lanka?
Yeah. Firstly, I would say by the investment. Multinationals bring investment to the country, and also they provide employment to the local community.
Okay.
Then number two, I would say it brings a lot of global knowledge in a more structured manner.
Okay.
It actually is sort of an eye-opener to the local organizations as well, because they have to actually up their skills, and they have to enhance their capabilities to meet up that standard that the multinationals bring about, which altogether brings a total vibrancy to the local economy. I think those are
the international exposure that you bring into the local market.
Yeah, yeah. So that I think that is something that I think the multinationals bring. So in that sense, but on the other hand, even the multinationals, though they bring the global expertise, I think it's important that we actually respect the local cultures and identify the local consumer needs and be adaptable to it.
Right, and the business world is constantly changing, and we experience a lot of volatility in the market. So how do you adapt to these changes in the market, and how do you cater to those demands?
See, I think volatility is inevitable, but I agree. Now today we actually face a lot of, the intensity of the volatility is quite high, I would say. But I believe in this saying of every dark cloud has a silver lining. Okay. So I think we as business leaders, we should be able to identify the opportunities around this volatility and then act on it in a fast and focused manner. So that's my way.
Okay, so You are a graduate in bioscience, a qualified accountant, and also holds a MSc in psychology. This is quite a unique combination. What made you pick such a combination, and how has your education qualifications actually helped you in your career line?
It's a long story, Nisanga, actually. Science was my pet subject.
Okay.
That was my favorite subject during school days.
Okay.
So I wanted to actually pursue sort of some career towards in science. So bioscience in particular was my, because I had a very, I was observatory by nature, and also I had a very curious mind. So I see things differently around me, which I got from that my science background. And so I completed a bioscience degree, and though I was specializing in botany, due to certain life decisions, I opted to actually come back to corporate world. And when I entered the corporate world, then I had to sharpen my other skills. Like, for example, finance was something that I was not sort of exposed to. Therefore, I had to go through the finance. I had to gain my knowledge in finance, which is essential in the corporate world, in the role that I had to play. Then, after being a marketer for some time, where I had to anyway deal with consumers, understanding consumers, understanding their mindset, and identifying the need gaps, etc. It was all about consumers and their mindsets.
Right.
I felt I need to maybe deepen my knowledge a bit more. And actually it was late Professor Udita Liyanage, with whom I had a long discussion on this. He the one who guided me actually, and proposed that I do this MSc in psychology. And I'm very grateful, because I think it has given me a new sort of a vision and a deeper understanding on behavioral patterns, which is important in my job.
Right. So, if you look at the labor market, there is a constant requirement for skilled labor. On the other side, you have many graduates looking for job opportunities, and even if they find job opportunities, they find it very difficult to fit into their job role. So, what is the issue here? How do we tackle this situation?
I know, as you say, I think there are people with multiple qualifications, be it academic or be it professional qualifications. But and also they have under the impression that that will take them to the place that they want to be. But I think apart from that, there are other aspects that is required for you to get into an organization and to be there. And one such would be your attitude. You need to actually have a positive attitude towards whatever the task you are doing. And also the flexibility, because in today's world where they want to really switch roles, etc., then you should be having a flexible mindset and respect others, because in an organization you are not working alone, you'll be working with several stakeholders. I think these attributes,
You have to accept differences.
you have to accept differences, and then you need to respect it also. So I think that is something we need to cultivate. I think as maybe parents, as teachers, as mentors, apart from getting all these qualifications, we really have to highlight and sort of educate the youngsters also on these aspects for them to be successful in life.
Right. So, as you're in the field of marketing, can you also talk about the specific set of skills required to be a marketer?
Yeah, I think one factor is that you need to have a very inquisitive mind.
Okay.
You need to be watchful of what's happening around you. Vigilant, and also pick opportunities, identify opportunities. That's number one. And not only that, then you need to be able to validate that opportunity through data. And then you need to have a very analytical mind using data, but not to be an addict to the data also, to see the feasibility of it. And also be very focused on your results, because it should lead to a business result. And lastly, I think you should be able to sell it to the other stakeholders and the consumers, for which I think you need to have the communication, storytelling,
delivery
ability. So I think those are the few key things that a marketer should possess.
Okay, and also what we see is our lifestyles have changed drastically when you compare with our previous generation. So how have these changes in lifestyles affected the consumer market?
If you are comparing with the previous generation, I think the globalization has a major impact on the changes in the lifestyle.
Okay.
I think the borders between countries are eroding. Whether people sort of travel physically or they might do it through social media, they are really exposed to several global trends and global lifestyles, which has a major impact, I think, on the local consumer lifestyle as well.
Okay, so as a business personality with international exposure, can you also talk about the global trends in the consumer market that is actually affecting the local consumer market?
Affecting us. One big thing is the digitalization.
Okay.
You know, I think digitalization plays a major role globally and locally as well. Be it to get information or to do transactions or anything. I think that plays a big role, the multi-screen culture. So, and the other thing, wellness. You know, wellness is becoming a real lifestyle thing, and wellness is becoming a key thing in life. So I think we need to, I think that is also having an impact in our local consumers as well. Then speaking of specific consumer groups, if I may take the younger generation, I think I see a lot of need for confirmation on authenticity, as well as the personalized products or services are also something that they are yearning for. And the other thing, I think, unlike the previous generation, I think this generation, especially through these global impact, also they are, I think, valuing the work-life balance in a much more stronger manner. And in doing so, they are willing to, I think, pay for the convenient aspect as well. So these are the trends that are happening globally. But on the other hand, like as business leaders, when we are picking these trends that are impacting locally, we need to really be very careful in picking what to drive, because we need to think of our country, the scale, the demographics and all that, when we are really picking the levers that are coming from global aspect.
Okay, so as a successful career woman, can you share some tips as to how women could cultivate career success?
Okay, for career success, I think, be it a man or a woman, I think first of all we need to really equip ourselves with the necessary knowledge, the necessary know-how to do our job properly. That goes without saying for anyone. But on top of it, for women especially, I think they have to be geared to meet the multiple roles that the society expects from them also. Because they are not only the corporate leader, they have to play the role of the caregiver at home also. So I think, so that's a challenge for them. But there again, I think certain attributes that are there, inherent attributes that are there in women, actually makes them fit for it also. One example is, like, generally women are good at multitasking, which is required in this setup. And I think the life challenges that is there will make them sharpen that skill more, and also the resilience. I think these two factors in women actually helps them to really maybe be on par with their counterparts in meeting the challenges of corporate world as well.
Right, so at the same time it is also important that you achieve your life goals while progressing in your career lines. So it is very, very important. So how can someone actually make use of your career and achieve its life goals?
I think first of all you need to define the purpose of your life, be it your life or the career. And then you can actually lay your goals on both streams. And I believe at any given time in life, there are certain goals that you have to prioritize. Maybe it's both, maybe it's in one stream. You know, like, it all depends on your purpose. So I feel if you are really focused, and if you prioritize, and if you are really focused on the goal that you want to reach, it's not impossible. It's just that at that particular time you may have to give a little bit more attention to that sphere than the other. So it's up to the individual, and also they have to set their expectations in a very achievable manner.
Right. So since you hold a MSc in psychology, I will ask you this question: as if you choose a corporate line, stress becomes part and parcel of your life, and it is very, very important that we learn and know how to deal with stress. As if not, it may lead to many adverse outcomes. So how do you deal with stress?
I think stress is needed also up to a certain extent. It's
Okay.
a stimulant for us to maybe function.
Okay.
But yes, I agree. I mean, if overloaded, it can be a burden to you as well. So I think in my case, or anyone's else's case also, I think we should do some things which makes us happy, makes us unwind.
Okay.
In doing our day-to-day jobs, and you should know when to sort of take that break also. And in my case, there are certain things that I like I like art, I like music, so I do a little bit of painting or listen to music or go for a walk, like that, connecting with nature. These things makes me unwind. And I think through experience you would know when to take the break and when to go on. So I think everyone should find their own little things that makes them unwind.
Okay.
And then it becomes much more productive to go on.
Okay, so being a successful career woman, when you look back, what you see as your greatest challenges that you had to overcome?
As I mentioned, for a woman, it's challenging to really meet the demands of both lives. So I think I myself have faced that, but as I said, we've been sort of attuned to being multitaskers and all that. I think we somehow, and also being methodical, prioritizing, focusing. This has actually helped me to really sort of go on and being successful. And again, like the success is defined by yourself, like what makes you successful. So the definition comes from you yourself. And that, as I told you, setting up goals which is within what you are dreaming of, and pursuing it. So I think it's simple, but as I said, for women it's more tougher, but at the same time we are more equipped to do it successfully as well.
So a lot of females leave corporate sector once they have kids. So how did you hold on to your job, and how did you develop in your career without giving up? And this is something that we very frequently find in this society. And how did you balance all ends?
I think I was lucky in a way, because I was a part of an organization which actually had a good understanding on these gender needs. And the other thing, I had a good caregiving system. So I think for any woman, I think before thinking of giving up, I have to really make an effort to really see whether there's a responsible caregiving system for you to support, so that you can continue in your career as well. So that is my advice.
So any role models in your life, and why?
In my life, in fact, as we were talking about women, I think I actually really admire two people in corporate world. One in corporate world actually is Sheryl Sandberg, because I think she's a remarkable lady who has really shown the resilience in facing certain situations in life, and how she gives value to women. And also Oprah Winfrey, because she still talks about her humble beginning and how she came up in life, and also she's a real, I think, makes a difference to the other people's lives. So I think those attributes have really inspired me as well.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. It was a different conversation, but quite an inspiring conversation. We wish you all the very best, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Nisanga.
Right. With that, we will move on to business news, where we will have a look at one of the most important activities that took place in the business world. Yes, Richie Tea, one of the most loved tea brands in Sri Lanka and the largest bulk tea distributor of the country, celebrated its 25th anniversary last week, and there was a grand ceremony to mark this milestone at Waterset. So let's have a look at some of the important moments from this event.
Richie Tea aims to revolutionize the tea industry with the launch of its new tea dispenser. Said device will dispense export quality tea unique to our motherland, thereby delivering an enhanced tea drinking experience. The tea industry consists of 28 grades of tea. Richie Tea, through its introduction of the dispenser, makes 8 specialty tea grades available to their customers. The tea dispenser is to be formally launched Tuesday, August 1st, 2017 at the Water's Edge, Pattaramulla. Richie Tea currently boasts over 25 years of industry experience sourcing its teas from Sri Lanka's best quality tea estates and some of Sri Lanka's best tea auctions. The company now stands as Sri Lanka's largest bulk tea distributor. Chairman and Managing Director of Richie Group, Mr. Viranta Hettiarachchi stated, much of Sri Lanka's premium tea varieties are not made available for local purchase. Richie Tea's all-new dispenser enables the local market to experience the internationally renowned fine taste of original Ceylon tea. The tea dispenser will be made available at exclusive modern trade outlets and Richie dealership stores free of charge to host a range of premium tea categories distinct to Sri Lanka. Mr. Hettiarachchi said that while being stuck to traditional teas, they are planning to introduce innovative tea products to cater to the present and future generations, such as tea as an energy drink, tea as a non-alcoholic product, as well as tea in chocolate flavor. In celebration of its 25th year anniversary and the 150-year anniversary of Sri Lankan tea, Richie Tea further unveils its anniversary blend pack. Said product consists of a rare tea blend made up of leaves from 3 unique geographical locations, each with a unique climate and elevation. The leaves are also sourced from selected auctions under the supervision of experienced senior tea tasters. Richie Tea announces that same blend will be further available as a tin container pack. Richie Tea also hopes to introduce another introductory product, Trailblazer, made from FBOPF extra special tea unique only to Sri Lanka. To mark its 25th year anniversary, Richie Tea will also hold biannual raffle draws this year. The first raffle draw was held on the 29th of June 2017, with the second draw set to take place in December 2017, and consumers can be a part of the raffle draw by submitting the serial number found in the sticker attached to any Richie Tea pack via SMS. The grand prize of the raffle draw is a brand new Renault Kwid with cash prizes of 100,000 rupees, 75,000 rupees and 50,000 rupees for first, second and third place winners with the most number of SMS respectively. The draw will also provide 50 consolation prizes of 10,000 rupees. The second draw, the grand finale, offers a grand prize of a brand new Renault Kwid. Richie Group Chairman wishes to thank all raffle draw participants for the support shown towards the campaign.
Right, so that is indeed great news for all those tea lovers out there. And with that, we will move on to a short commercial break and we will be back with you soon. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Business Today, and now it is time for us to move on to the stock market segment. And today it's not going to be just an update, but we hope to go into an in-detail discussion on its developments. Yes, we have a very special guest joining us today. As you know, we bring you regular updates from the Colombo Stock Exchange, and today we have the key person heading CSE joining us, and he is Mr. Rajiva Bandaranaike. He is the CEO of CSE. A very good evening to you and a very warm welcome. Yeah. So first of all, can you talk about the current situation of the Colombo stock market?
Yeah, if you look at the market this year, we have seen the market growing quite differently to what we have had in the last 2 years. As you know, we have had 2 bad years in the last 2 years where we had negative growth. But if you take 2017, the market has really turned around. And if you look at the share prices, we have seen the all share price index increasing by about 5% from January to date. And the S&P 20 index, which has appreciated by about 6.5%. So this year what we have seen is a turnaround of the market after 2 very dull years.
Okay. So there's so much talk about demutualization of CSE. So can you explain this process and the progress CSE has made so far?
Okay, demutualization. I need to get into the structure of the stock exchange per se to talk about demutualization. It's a bit of a strange word to many people.
Yes.
The stock exchange itself is a company limited by guarantee, which essentially means that it is also a not-for-profit organization. Now, it does not mean that we don't make money. It does not mean that we don't make profits. We do prepare a profit and loss account, we have a balance sheet, and we like to earn more money than what we spend. But essentially, it is a not-for-profit organization. So this process of demutualization means you are moving from a company limited by guarantee to a company limited by shares, like any other commercial organization. Now, why one would want to do that? Essentially, in the case of a stock exchange, is to separate ownership rights from trading rights. As you know, the stockbrokers have a claim on the stock exchange, and once it's a mutual organization like a club or association. But we have progressed beyond that in terms of structure and governance, etc. over the years. But essentially, it is a member-driven mutual organization. Now, demutualization means you are demutualizing that mutual organization and then getting into a more commercial structure. So you separate the rights of brokers of their trading rights to their governance rights. So we will have a completely independent board. For example, currently it's a representative of a broker who is the chairman of the stock exchange. But in a demutualized environment, it will be an independent non-executive director who will chair the exchange, for example. So like that, there are governance and structural changes that will come about. And essentially, it means that the exchange will then represent a wider stakeholder group than the brokers themselves.
Okay, and still we are a frontier market. So how can Colombo stock market get into emerging market equity indexes? What should we do to get into this index as we can attract fresh capital coming in?
Yeah, now emerging markets index, there are a number of criteria that one has to fulfill. One of the criteria is that we need to have a minimum number of very liquid companies that have a fairly significant public float, that is shares available for trading. So right now in our market, only 2 companies qualify as constituents of an emerging markets index. So we need to have more companies qualifying. So we need to have larger companies with a larger public float that will get listed on the CSE for us to qualify to get onto the emerging markets index. Now, why would one want to get onto this index? Because you, as a market being in there, will mean that there are more foreign funds, foreign investors who will invest in Sri Lanka in our market. So a lot of markets aspire to get into the emerging markets index, and one recent entrant was Pakistan,
Okay.
where they graduated from a frontier markets index to a emerging markets index. And right now in the MSCI frontier markets index, so we have ourselves, Vietnam and Bangladesh,
Okay.
and Kazakhstan, for example. So those are the markets that are in the index. So our aspiration is to reach out and get
How
into
far
emerging.
do you think?
Well, a lot of
we
work
are?
has to be done, and we're doing that. I
Okay.
think we need to set ourselves a 2 to 3 year time horizon for that. As
Okay.
I said, we need to get larger, more liquid companies in. That's a key criteria that we have to
Okay,
fulfill.
so when you compare with other frontier markets, forward price earning ratio and price to book value of the Colombo market is still quite low. So can you talk about the investment opportunities available in this situation?
Yeah, now if you look at the price earnings ratio, the market PE as we call
Yeah.
it, actually it's an opportunity.
Yes.
Because due to the fact that we had a downturn in the last 2 years, our market is relatively cheaper to other
trade.
markets in the region. So if you look at it from the perspective of a foreign investor, Colombo is cheaper than Thailand or Indonesia or Philippines or India or Singapore or Malaysia. So it's a buying opportunity for foreigners. So we see it as an opportunity that Colombo is relatively cheaper to other markets. So the PE is a measurement that you can measure valuations across markets. So our price earnings is currently is about 11 times. And just as a comparison, if you see India, it's at about 22 times. If you see Malaysia, it's at about 18 times. If you see a place like Vietnam, it's about 15 times. So as a regional comparison would mean that Colombo is cheaper, which makes it a good buying opportunity. Yeah.
Right. So market liquidity is one of the key factors taken into consideration by investors when making investment decisions. So what is CSE doing to improve market liquidity?
Yeah. Now the Securities and Exchange Commission came up with some regulations recently, which compels companies to maintain a minimum public float. So there's a requirement that companies need to maintain a minimum public float of 20%, and we are quite serious about enforcing it, and companies have started to comply with some of these regulations. So there are more shares available for trading. We are also constantly talking to companies and trying to encourage them to divest some more into the public float. Quite apart from that, a key requirement to improve the liquidity would mean that we need to canvas, we need to encourage larger, more liquid companies to come into the market. That's one way that we can add liquidity to the market.
Okay, there was also discussion to implement short selling. Are you looking at materializing this anytime soon?
Yeah, now again I need to explain how do we get to short selling. We currently operate on what we call a non-delivery versus payment environment. But ideally we have to move to what we call a delivery versus payment. Delivery versus payment means you're essentially exchanging shares and money at the same time. But today, if you take Colombo, when you transact on the market as a buyer, you receive the shares instantly to your account as soon as you do the transaction. As a seller, you lose custody of your shares, but you get paid 3 days later. So there is a 3-day risk. So our plan is to move by next year into a delivery versus payment environment where shares and money will be exchanged at the same time. Now, once you do that, that creates certain opportunities in the market. For example, for investors to sell short on a stock, sell something that they don't have initially and then fulfill it, buy it back later. So that creates opportunity for investors to make money not only when the market is on the rise, but also to make money on the market on its way down. So that's one opportunity, and along with DVP we also have other products like stock borrowing and lending, which is another product that investors can expect, where if you have dormant portfolio with you, you can lend it and make some money out of it as well. So there are a few opportunities that will come by way of us moving into this delivery versus payment environment.
Okay, at the same time, we see a limited number of, only a limited number of investors seen in the market active, because you have about over 750,000 in the CDF system, but you only see about 30,000 actively trading. So what is CSE doing about this situation?
I think again we need to understand the structure of the market.
Okay.
Our market essentially is what we call an institutionally driven market. So nearly 93% of volumes are generated by foreign investors, institutional investors and high net worth investors. The real retail investor that we are talking about constitutes or accounts for only about 7% of the market. So that's the structure of the market. Now, in order to attract a larger number of people, we need to do a lot of work in improving the level of knowledge and awareness among the investor community. Secondly, is to provide them accessibility. How do they access the services of stockbrokers? So those are some of the key questions that we are resolving presently. As a stock exchange, we have set up, I think to answer your question, we have set up 8 regional offices in different parts of the country, almost in all the provinces, and they act as marketing officers to create awareness programs. We do about 500 to 600 awareness seminars for any given year in all 3 languages to educate investors on investing in the market. As you know, investing in the market is not as easy as investing you're saving your money or putting your money into a bank. So you require to invest some time. You need to study the company that you're investing in. So you need to invest time, not only money. So, and that requires some form of learning. So that's why we do conduct a whole series of awareness and investor education programs to give that level of understanding to the investor, so that he can understand what investing in capital markets means, enable him to understand the risk, how do you manage the risk, how do you minimize the risk, and how you make a successful investment in the stock market. So that requires some level of awareness creation among investors and investor education, which is part and parcel of our role in encouraging more people to really come into the market. Yeah.
Okay, you just mentioned that there are so many other options also available in the market for investment. So if you talk about the risk exposure, what is the level of risk that a person is exposed here compared to all other options available in the market?
Yeah, now if you compare investing in the stock market to other forms of investment, as I mentioned, if you, we also need to understand the difference between savings and investment. So essentially, you first start saving, and when you have a sufficient amount of money saved, is then when you get into investment. You first probably save in a bank and put by your money for a specific purpose that you want to. But once you build up sufficient reserves, that's the time you can channel your money into investment and investment in capital markets and stock markets. So we need to first understand the difference between savings and investment. And once you do that, when you look at an opportunity in the market, when you want to get into stock markets or capital markets, you need to understand the risk in investing in capital markets. You need to understand that you can make capital gains as well as capital losses. So you need to understand that share prices fluctuate. You need to understand that investing in the stock market means that it's a long-term savings instrument or investment instrument, that your money that you put in is not really targeted at short-term gains.
Okay.
So in the short term, there is volatility in any stock market. You may lose in the short term, but in the longer term, yes, in the longer term, you will gain. So if you compare investing in the market as against other forms, it carries a higher level of risk, but also it carries very much higher returns over the long term. So you need to commit your money long term in the first instance. And secondly, I think you need to understand the risk of investing in markets. And thirdly, as I said, you need to invest some time in learning about the companies that you invest in, learning how to interpret a financial statement. So those are some of the requirements when you are looking at investing in capital markets. So that's why this concept of risk, understanding risk, is important, and that's what we talk about in all our awareness seminars.
Right.
How do you manage risk?
Okay, my final question to you is, I'm expecting a very brief answer. Can you give some tips for a person who would aspire to get into share trading?
I think essentially, as I said, you need to understand. Secondly, that you need to use different strategies investing in stock markets. You don't put all your eggs into one basket, the famous saying. If you have money saved up for a rainy day, you don't put that into stock markets. But if you have sufficient reserves and investment, you need to get into markets if you want higher returns. And currently, the market offers a very good buying opportunity because prices are at relatively cheap levels. So it's what we call a good buying opportunity. But when you get into the market, I think you need to get into fundamentally strong stock. You need to study and understand the risk. You need to seek advice, proper investment advice prior to getting into the market. So these are some of the things that you need to consider.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was quite an intense conversation we had with you and an informative conversation we had with you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Right. With that, we got to wind up for today, and we will be back with you next week with more updates. And we hope to see you next week, same time on Channel I. Good night and take care until we see you.